as we know on Amazon, it's a very brand agnostic platform where each listing looks the same. And so trying to build out a strong brand presence can be really hard to do. And even once you've established your brand, now you actually have to defend it from people who are trying to steal sales from you. And so, overall, for brand defense, what we're trying to do is really own those spaces where when people search in your brand, they don't get led astray by other ads that go to another brand. And so, it leads us to, like, before we even jump into the strategy and everything, it leads us to this, like, overarching question. So, if somebody's searching for my brand, aren't they going to pay for or aren't they going to buy my product anyways? And why should I waste money on advertising? So, Matt, what's your approach to that? How do you typically respond to that?
I would typically respond with, in most cases, it makes sense to still target your branded keywords. Key reason for that is top of search and sponsor brands, top of search. Those first few placements, those first few products in search results generate a massive amount of conversions and clicks. If you are not in those placements, you will lose market share. One of the fun kind of stats that Amazon emailed us recently was 40% of branded search in the health and personal care category led to a purchase of a different brand. So even though somebody was actively seeking out a certain brand, 40% of those people ended up buying a totally different one. So key thing with branded search is you're highly relevant for those placements. Your cost per click is likely to be less than that of your competition. You're likely to be served more of those impressions. You will generate a better return from those clicks than what your competition will. Chances are your ACoS will be profitable. You will still make money on those sales. Even if you don't, chances are that means that you have immense competition chasing after your brand, and so it can still make sense to target your own branded terms. Those conversions are just so important.
And just to add on that too, a lot of people don't realize that there's ads on Amazon. And so it becomes really apparent, like when Matt and I are, if I'm telling like different relatives about what I do or different people that we meet on the street, and we say that we help sellers advertise on Amazon. They'll say, well, where are the advertisements? And I've honestly had to walk multiple people through and say, do a search in Amazon. All right, you see that top listing? That's actually an ad that has the little sponsored text below it. And so a lot of people don't even realize that there are ads on Amazon. And how that ties into brand defense is that if somebody searches for your brand, they may just click on that top spot, which is actually an ad. And from there, get drawn to purchase from a competitor. And so if you're not protecting your brand and owning those top spots like sponsored products, top of search, you could be losing a lot of market share and losing that brand presence or that lifetime value of your customer to a competitor. Now, because somebody may purchase from them, not realize it, but then they might like the product and I'll stick with that brand going forward. So that's just another piece to keep in mind and why you see so many major brands like defending themselves on Amazon. So Matt, for like brand defense strategies and everything, walk me through how you would typically implement that.
Yeah, so starting with sponsored products, I would typically launch a brand defense campaign with an all product ad group, essentially. So every product under my brand, I would group within that ad group and make sure we have branded exposure across the full product line. Within that campaign, I would typically use fixed bids in a high top of search setting. Key reason for that is I want to own those top placements. And even if there are only 4 top of search placements on page 1, by advertising your full product line, you'll also be taking up like midway through down page 1, bottom of search on page 1, and page 2 and beyond. So although we want to serve the product that's most likely to be purchased in those higher placements, we also want the rest of your product lineup showing up in those sponsored placements throughout search. if you have like models and sublines to your product mix, then I would recommend segmenting those into separate ad groups and choosing keywords that relate to those models. Don't make people search more than they need to try and find your product. Pick the keywords, those branded keywords most relevant to each model, and make sure that they're siloed so that way if somebody searches them, they're looking for a specific product, you give them the best odds of finding it in the highest volume placement. Key thing there is you're not forcing customers to search all the way down page 1 and get exposure to a large number of competitor listings potentially. Make it as convenient as possible for somebody to purchase your product. So typically use fixed bids for a campaign bidding strategy, high bids, high top of search settings. On the sponsored brands front, watch out for broad match keywords. If we're Coca-Cola and we're advertising Coca-Cola keywords and we choose broad match as our match type, we'll be served ads for Pepsi, for soda, for pop, just all sorts of like category, just keywords that are similar to the keyword that we input. So branded search with broad match and sponsor brands may not actually be branded search terms that match to that keyword. So use phrase match.
In the sponsor brands podcast, we actually called it the super broad category, just because when you use broad match and sponsor brands, you can get such a broad range of different search terms that pop up.
Yeah. So I guess key takeaways would be bid aggressively, make sure that you're owning those top of search placements, and then make it as easy as possible for people to find the keyword or the product that they're looking for with your keyword mix. So don't be afraid to break out multiple ad groups by model and choose model specific or attribute specific branded keywords.
Yeah. So overall for the brand defense strategy, like key takeaways are: 1, we recommend really defending your brand. And the reason is that people are very likely to switch on Amazon, and just maintaining that brand presence is so big. If you look at, remember, Amazon is definitely a marathon, not a sprint. And so this is helping to really invest in the long-term establishment of your brand on Amazon. Since your brand is obviously, your products are going to be highly relevant for your brand, and people are very likely to convert into sales when they're searching specifically for you. 1, we tend to get these ads at a lot lower cost per click. 2, since they convert so well, we tend to get a very solid return in terms of ACoS and ROAS. And for those who are still skeptical that these ads may be cannibalizing some of the organic sales that you're driving, what you can always do is do somewhat of a split test where you can turn these ads off for a while and then turn them back on, and then look at the overall impact that you see on overall sales. Just one thing to keep in mind when you do that is that ads can also tie into organic rankings. It can also tie into how often you're showing up in your search results, which ties back to the organic ranking side. So some of the impacts from turning off those ads may not be seen for a while. And so that's what makes it harder to do these split tests, but that's a way to test it. But just remember that you could be losing some market share that your competitors are now getting because they're taking those top spots, and many people don't even realize that those are ads overall.